Hey everybody, it's Cloud Connection, and as you likely have heard by now, I won't be uploading to this channel anymore. I already released my grand finale where I ranked every single Banjo-Kazooie character, and if you watch that, you know that I'm starting a new channel called The Great Jinjo, where I'll be uploading from here on. If you haven't already subscribed to that channel and you want to do so, there's a link in the comments and description. This video is going to serve as a postscript to everything I've done on Cloud Connection over the years, as well as a chance for me to explain why I made the decision in detail. I know change can be weird and scary, and I want to take this time to walk through my thought process and why this decision was important to me personally. If you clicked on this just looking for a quick explanation though, here it is. I'm done trying to quote-unquote succeed on YouTube. I want to get back to making videos solely for the purpose of making videos, and in order to do that, I want to start from the ground up without worrying about any past analytics or metrics or audience expectations interfering with what I do. And to be blunt, while I enjoy making videos, I don't enjoy making them under the Cloud Connection name anymore, and I need to reinvent myself. But let's get back to the beginning to fully understand why. I was finishing up my last year of college when Cloud Connection began back in March 2018. By that time, I'd already been making YouTube videos for about 10 years on various different channels, but usually they'd either be just a bunch of random stuff, or wouldn't last very long. I'd been a big fan of the types of videos that creators like Some Call Me Johnny, the Normal Boots and Hidden Block crew, and even classic creators like Angry Video Game Nerd and Nostalgia Critic had done for years. And I've wanted to do similar content for a while, but just never had the equipment. I was a part of my college's radio station though, and they had a recording booth that we could use, so I recorded the first ever Cloud Connection video there. At least the VO. I didn't have any good capture cards or a gaming PC, so I had to rely on footage from other channels. That first video was the top 10 Mario spin-off games, followed by basically any other idea I had. Quizzes in video games, Super Spy Hunter for the NES, the Castlevania Netflix show, a satirical Detective Pikachu analysis, Conker's Pocket Tales. I gotta say though, even though those are probably the roughest Cloud Connection videos in terms of quality, it's probably a good leap above most people's first videos because, well, I'd been studying similar videos for years. And sure, I fell into similar traps that video creators fall into when they start out. You either speak too slow or too fast. In my case, I was too fast. You don't have the right amount of energy, your editing is all over the place, etc. But looking back at it now, it is pretty well put together. Not that I really recommend watching those videos now, but I think you can still see the burgeoning creator I turned out to be. But in 2019, I decided to switch up the format a bit and start taking things a little more serious. Not only by tightening up the editing, but also treating the games I talk about with more reverence, giving their development history and impact on the gaming landscape, if applicable, more attention. Hence the retrospectives. I did this because while the just review a video game with occasional jokes and edits style works well for what I was covering in 2018, for games like Wolf Among Us, Grim Fandango, and the Half-Life series, it made more sense to really dive into them. And I was having so much fun making videos that I wanted to try and make a go of it as a serious creative endeavor like all the other creators I watched were doing. By the middle of the year, I'd gotten my first 100 subscribers and had been working on two big retrospective series, Banjo-Kazooie and Half-Life. It's likely that you found this channel from those Banjo videos, and they're some of my favorites, not just because the series is incredibly important to me, but because those were the videos that I felt were the most fully formed I'd released to that point. These were the first games that I played for this channel that I'd played a lot during my childhood, and while I'd wanted to cover them from the beginning, I knew that starting with them wouldn't be the best idea. I may have called my early videos solid and watchable, but in terms of the script, insights, audio, video, and, well, everything, they aren't the best. After a year of making these kinds of videos, I'd learned enough to really push hard on projects, and Banjo was the first series I made a large, concentrated effort to get it as close to perfect as possible. And it evidently resonated with people, since they were immediately the most successful videos I'd made to that point. Just to put it in perspective, that means they got over 100 views in 24 hours, which was a big deal back then. The Half-Life retrospectives that followed didn't do nearly as well, and considering they are very different from Banjo, it does make sense, although I was incredibly proud of those as well. Especially because unlike Banjo, which is more varied in terms of gameplay, Half-Life is far more linear in terms of evolution. So that series was far more of a let's see how the franchise evolved over time, rather than just a set of linked reviews. And that's something that stuck with me. I wanted to extend my line of thinking beyond just the textual nature of the subject. So not just talking about how the gunplay feels in Half-Life, but also how its iconic features like in-engine cutscenes and flowing map design influence games to come. That's what I aim to do in the next year, 2020, which was certainly a year for better or worse. Forgetting all of that though, 2020 was a very personal year for me on this channel, at least as far as what I covered. Stuff like The Walking Dead, Donkey Kong 64, and Ocarina of Time were definitely congruent with stuff I'd uploaded before, but even then, all three of them were important to me at various points of my life. But the rest of it was an odd mix of recent obsessions, games that I think had fallen out of the public eye, and criminally overlooked titles that I wanted to give coverage. And it's an interesting mix of subjects when you look back at it. What other content creator would cover Donkey Kong 64 and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream in the same year? That former video was popular right out of the gate, but that latter one has weirdly popped off this year? Not sure why that is. Anyway, one of the other things I was pushing for that year was getting 1,000 subs and applying for monetization. I always viewed YouTube as a hobby, but I mean, why not take the opportunity to get a bit of money from just doing what I was doing normally? I won't go into specific figures because I don't want to fuel either snarky cynicism about an assumed metric of success or false hope about what kind of money you can achieve by doing YouTube for as long as I have. All you need to know is that I was not making nearly enough money to make a living solely on YouTube videos, but still making a decent chunk of change. So between my job's wages and trickling ad revenue, I was very financially stable and therefore comfortable making wild swings in content. I could experiment with shorter reviews of indie games or do retrospectives on games I hadn't played before like Undertale, or cover 3D Movie Maker, which is by far the subject that meant the most to me as a creative. It was kind of a weird year for sure, bouncing back and forth kinda awkwardly between games and genres. While I liked the videos on their own, I wasn't exactly happy with the direction the channel was headed. That is to say, no direction whatsoever. So for 2021, I really honed in on the stuff that was doing well and narrowed my focus. For individual retrospectives, they were either related to games I'd covered in the past, like Conker's Bad Fur Day, Yooka-Laylee, and Portal. And there were two big projects that took over the entire year. The first was the Paper Mario retrospective, which harkened back to the Banjo and Half-Life videos but spread across the entire year rather than all at once, which I felt would be better for audiences that don't care about Paper Mario so they'd still have videos to watch in between. And then I'd been prepping the beginning of the Legacy of Lupin series since February, finally launching it in October. I'd binged through the Lupin series during lockdown and fell in love, and I noticed that there wasn't really a YouTube channel dedicated to the series. Plenty of people have talked about individual films and shows, but nothing that was a comprehensive examination of the franchise. And so I published the first few videos at the end of the year, stupidly to this channel rather than starting a new one. Now let me be clear, I am not saying that the videos themselves are stupid or that covering Lupin was a bad idea. But by publishing them here, I inevitably created a split between my audience that would affect video performance on both sides. My rationale for posting them here was that they would get the most attention on a channel with an established audience rather than starting from fresh. Which might be true, but it also gave my channel a brand new identity crisis. At the beginning of the year, my DK64 retrospective got a huge algorithm boost that was compounded by me releasing the Bad Fur Day video right afterward. That carried my channel to 5k subs and put it well on the way to 10k, and although its big success wouldn't come until much later, this is also when I posted my Papers, Please video, which is still, bafflingly to me, my most viewed video. But when the Lupin video started, it drove a spike through all of that. I know there are some crossover viewers who watched both, but inevitably plenty of you would have seen that I uploaded a new video and immediately discarded it because it was either gaming or Lupin. I don't have many big regrets regarding this channel, but not starting a separate one back in 2021 for Lupin was absolutely one of them. Because that way, I could have effectively juggled those two projects without them tumbling over one another. But that was the way it was. Going into 2022, there were lots of changes in my personal life that ended up affecting Cloud Connection. I quit my job to take up a different position at a new company which I thought would be a better fit for me, and long story short, it wasn't, and by the end of the year, I was let go. Which I'm not bitter about. Had I not been fired first, I likely would have quit to find work somewhere else. But the whole situation soured my outlook on everything I was doing, and that includes Cloud Connection. After a bout of Bell's palsy, I set about doing a few shortened video game reviews as I had grown frustrated with the retrospective formula, although I'll admit it, not really much changed beyond the length of the videos. So that means that Kirby 64 and Majora's Mask didn't really get the treatment they deserved. I had planned to cover the entire Mass Effect series through the year, playing through the first one again and partially writing a script, but it never went farther than those initial stages. And then after a few months, I just kinda stopped caring about gaming videos. I mean, the Lupin retrospectives were going strong, covering classics like Cagliostro, Mamo, Parts 2 and 3, and Fuma Conspiracy. And to be fair, those videos soared. The Lupin videos didn't do so well initially, as you might expect from a new series that is radically different, but in 2022, when they were kind of the only thing I was making, gangbusters, or comparatively, for a comprehensive look at a still relatively obscure anime series. Okay, that's not the only thing I was doing in 2022, as gaming retrospectives shuttered out. Particularly beating Banjo-Tooie without backtracking and beating DK64 in as few tags as possible, which were very enjoyable to do, especially the Tooie video, and got some solid attention. But I knew that that wasn't the direction I wanted to take the channel fully. I just wanted to make those videos because they seemed like fun to make, and they were. This was also the year that I started a series with my brother Dripson to rate every single Pokemon, starting with Gen 1 in February. I knew that it would be a bit of a side series, and that it was going to take at least 2 years to finish, which it did, a little bit longer actually. And as far as the video editing is concerned, they were some of the most repetitive and mind-numbing videos to make. And to be clear, it wasn't because of Dripson, and it wasn't because I was uninterested in the format. I wouldn't have done 10 videos of it if I didn't like the final results. But especially in the beginning, it was a set of 7 or 8 small edits, each done 100 plus times, with Vegas getting more and more laggy with each step. To be quite frank, it was the pits, and if doing retrospectives had already diminished my love of video making, this series nearly killed it all on its own. I love how those videos turned out, I want to stress that, but it made working on this channel feel far more like just plain old work. And tack on the fact that I didn't enjoy my actual job, it was a recipe for disaster. So I plan to make 2023 a bit of a resurgent year for the channel, trying to regain the passion that I felt was lost. Gaming retrospectives came back with high profile stuff like the Donkey Kong Country trilogy and Super Mario 64. I started the Breaking the Backlog series to talk about games that were on my backlog, and the Lupin retrospective continued with more 90s films. I wasn't trying to behold myself to so many tight deadlines, giving myself enough time to make the videos as perfect as possible. And for a brief minute, it was working wonderfully. In March, I uploaded 4 separate videos, 2 Breaking the Backlog videos, a Lupin retrospective, and the DKC retrospective. Which was great, but looking back on it now, I was just falling into the same pitfall that I've been doing for the past few years. Too many ideas juggled at once, not enough room for me to pursue smaller niches, and way too much work at one time. You have to keep in mind that as far as writing and video editing for this channel, I've done 99% of everything myself, and the only exceptions were scripts for collabs and making the Cloud Connection avatar. And as a one-man show, this channel takes up a lot of my time in order to get things out quickly. Financially, I did have some money saved up from the job, but after that ended, I decided to go freelance and pick up a few contracts. Which I did, eventually getting enough work to make a decent living, especially after moving out of New England to Minnesota with a flexible schedule to boot. And you'd think that'd make it easier for me to organize my video making workflow, but nope. Immediately I burned myself out again, and it didn't make me feel any better about what I was doing. So I tried a more drastic measure, splitting the channel into 2, one for gaming videos and one for the Lupin videos. I started Legacy of Lupin DX with the idea of getting more detailed about the series, with more nitty-gritty information that I might have otherwise glossed over in an attempt to keep Cloud Connection videos accessible to all. Think of something like what The Real Jims does for The Simpsons, where he goes deep on the show's evolution and how its characters changed over time. It was also an attempt to correct the problem of splitting the audience in 2, although in hindsight, that's not a solution that could be applied so far down the line. If I had started a new channel for Lupin to begin with, this wouldn't have been a problem. I don't want it to sound that I'm blaming the Lupin videos completely though, it was not their fault. And honestly, a lot of those feelings did come from my own thoughts, rather than people being pushy about it one way or another, although, make no mistake, some of you were. So for the rest of the year, at least on this channel, it was time to make some more gaming retrospectives. I covered Kirby Air Ride, and that's it. Beyond a video where I looked at Mortal Kombat 1 from the casual perspective, which I actually really enjoyed making, and a Jet Set Radio review, and more Pokemon videos, it was pretty quiet in the back half of 2023. There were plenty of Lupin videos though, when I had a big Trello board full of ideas that I could do for both Cloud Connection and Legacy of Lupin DX. 2024 would have been absolutely huge. So now we come to the point where we talk about why none of that happened, and the answer is frustratingly simple. One day I looked at all of those plans that I had and I thought to myself, I don't want to do any of this. I had a moment of clarity where I realized that my attitude of just keep pushing out content was not only making my videos objectively worse, not only making me look down on what I was doing, but also putting way too much mental stress on me. I took a few days to seriously think about what I should do next, and I further determined that the problem wasn't just inherently about my mindset, although that was something I wanted to change, but also because of the simple fact that trying to capture any kind of success on YouTube is a pointless endeavor if you don't have tons of money to throw at it. There are lots of channels that make absolutely incredible content, and a common thread between them is they have full production teams and companies, which requires way too much cash for just some guy with freelance income. They have that luxury, and I don't. But you know what? I don't need that luxury, and I don't want that luxury. The whole idea of some guy talking about video games with any degree of seriousness and releasing their thoughts and opinions in a tightly wound package to an audience of strangers is inherently silly and shouldn't be taken that seriously. And I've always believed that since day one, but over time it got corrupted in my mind to don't worry too much about having fun making videos, and as such, I didn't. It doesn't help that YouTube is incredibly harmful and counterintuitive if your aim is to succeed by their metrics. Why would a company that mandates viewer retention and response as a requirement for success create the most baffling and viewer-unfriendly UI for videos? And it doesn't help that the only info out there about getting more views or money on YouTube comes from either Google itself, whose information is vague at best, and from so-called YouTube experts who regurgitate useless or outdated information without any real insight. Because every attempt to do well on YouTube is at its core a guessing game, and that puts you in a precarious position at all times. I know that complaining about the algorithm is such a classic YouTuber thing to do, but there is a reason why it gets so much flack. It is a hurdle that interrupts every decision you make if your goal is to gain traction, and if you don't, you're fucked. And every user, channels and commenters alike just feeds into it every day because YouTube and other social media platforms reduces creation to accounting. You are actively discouraged from setting your own standards for success because it's all about hitting those big numbers. And to be frank, that's horseshit. So in that period of reflection, I said to myself, no more. I'm not going to be a slave to a broken, self-defeating system. After mulling it over, I decided to scrap the vast majority of what I had planned, keeping only a few long-term projects that I still wanted to do, and made the decision to start over from scratch. Thus, the Grey Jinjo was born. I'm choosing to move on from Cloud Connection not because I dislike what I've done so far, but because I needed to make that change for myself. And that's what it should be about in the end. I know not all of you will be a fan of this change, and I accept that. Some of you were never going to give this new thing a chance in the first place, and I accept that. An insignificant handful were absolute cunts about it, and I even accept that. Not their comments, of course, they don't count, just that it would happen. To those who had their doubts but at least have an open mind about things, hopefully you at least understand why I made this decision, even if it means to getting significantly fewer views or subscribers. And if you don't, well, I guess I can't help you there. I'm not claiming that starting a new channel was the absolute best way to go about this, but you know what? It happened, and fretting over every little decision and micro-analyzing what could have been better accomplishes far less than moving on with the plan. Especially when that plan came about to try and improve my mental standing and help me regain that pure love for making videos, which is working so far, naysayers be damned. So that's basically everything I wanted to cover, or at least everything I can think of for now. Hopefully this has answered some of your questions and assuaged some of your concerns. I wanted to make this video to give you an insight into my experience with this channel over the years and why I'm making a change for myself, because that needs to be priority number one. I'll probably still be checking comments on this channel for maybe a week or so, and then Cloud Connection is going to effectively go dark. But don't worry, these videos will still be up for as long as YouTube is still online. And as for the Loop On channel, while I don't want to completely rule out returning to that series, I don't plan to do so right now, and I likely won't for a while, if at all. Before I wrap this video up, there are plenty of people I want to thank for either their assistance with the channel, for all the fun interactions we've had over the years, or just for being super cool. In no particular order, Dribson, Wolfchaosan, Luna May Jen, The Checkpoint Show, Pugweenie, Mayor Hairbear, Trav Guy, Gaming Navi, Arcade, The Hatted Gamer, Strain42, Hoodley, James Herr, Star Hardy, The Golden Bolt, Dylan the Night Owl, Gumshoe Gamer, Zubaticus, Liberty Bell, And I'm sure there's plenty of other people that I'm forgetting. You're all awesome, and I couldn't have made it this far without your support. And that extends to all of you watching this as well. I might be the one making the videos, but it really is thanks to all of you watching that this channel got to the point that it reached. I'm incredibly proud of the work I've done, and I don't want you to think that I'm bitter with how this channel turned out. Sometimes you just need to shake things up or do things for yourself. I enjoy making videos too much to quit it entirely, which is why I'm venturing onward under a different name. And if you haven't yet checked out The Grey Jinjo, why not give it a shot? I've got a few videos up so far, and there are plenty more in progress. And if you aren't planning to follow me there, then I hope you've at least enjoyed the ride. Hope you all have a good day, and if you want to see more, well, you know where I'll be.